When we talk about the U.S. tax system, one number gets all the attention, the Social Security number. But what if I told you there's another nine-digit number, one that lets millions of people pay their taxes and contributes billions to the economy, yet most of us have never even heard of it? We're talking about the Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, or ITIN.
So it all starts with this fundamental puzzle, right? US law says if you earn wages, you've got to pay federal taxes. Doesn't matter what your immigration status is. But if you can't get a social security number, how are you supposed to do that? How do you file? And this isn't some tiny little issue. We're talking about a question that affects millions and millions of people.
Well, the IRS came up with its own answer to that very problem, the ITIN. This is the official system they built to bridge that exact gap. So let's dive in and break down what it is and how it actually works.
And really, the key is right there in the name. An ITIN is a tax processing number, and that's its whole reason for being. It's a nine-digit number that always starts with the number 9, and its entire original purpose was just to give people who don't have a social security number a way to file their taxes, just like the law requires.
Now, this program didn't just appear out of thin air. It's actually evolved quite a bit over the years. When it first launched way back in 1996, it was a pretty straightforward fix. But then in 2003, the IRS made a really critical change. You couldn't just ask for an I-10 anymore. You now had to submit a federal tax return with your application. This ties the number directly to the act of paying taxes. Then, fast forward to 2015, and Congress added an expiration rule, making sure these numbers are being actively used for what they were made for. Okay, and this is where the story gets really, really interesting, because a tool that was designed for one very specific job, tax compliance, it kind of morphed into something way bigger. It accidentally became this key that could unlock huge parts of the U.S. financial system. The whole journey starts with this document right here, the IRS Form W-7. I know it might look like just another boring government form, but it's actually the gateway. This is what an applicant has to fill out to get their TIN number. And the process itself is very specific. First, you fill out that W-7. Then you attach your tax return. You also have to provide proof of who you are and your foreign status, think a passport. But the key step, the one from that 2003 rule change, is that you can't get the number unless you already have a tax bill to report. But here's the thing. Once that number gets issued, it kind of takes on a life of its own. See, the IRS meant for it to do one thing, but the financial world saw an official government-issued ID number and started using it for something else entirely.
And this is the huge unintended consequence. Because an ITIN is a valid taxpayer ID, a lot of banks and lenders started accepting it in place of a social security number. And just like that, it opened the door to all these fundamental financial services: opening a bank account, getting a car loan, even building a U.S. credit history. What started as a tax tool became a major tool for financial inclusion. And this really gets to the heart of why people use it. This quote from an ITIN filer named Ernesto just sums it up perfectly. It's not just about following the rules in the here and now. For a lot of people, it's about creating a formal, official record of their economic contributions, a paper trail that proves they've been here, working, and paying into the system. But, and this is a huge but, this expanded use has led to some really common and frankly pretty dangerous misconceptions. So we need to be absolutely crystal clear about what an ITN is not. We got to talk about the limitations, the bright red lines. Okay, this comparison is absolutely crucial for understanding the limits. An SSN, as you know, tracks your earnings for retirement benefits and it authorizes you to work. An ITIN does neither of those things. Its only official purpose is tax processing. That means no work authorization, no eligibility for Social Security. They are completely different tools for completely different jobs.
Let me just say that one more time, because if you take away only one thing from this, it should be this. An ITIN is not a work permit. It does not grant you any kind of legal immigration status. It is purely and only a number for filing your taxes. That's it. Full stop.
So, this all leads to the next logical question, and it's a huge one for anyone thinking about applying. If you're handing over all this personal info to the IRS, how safe is it really?
Well, the answer is a little complicated, but it all comes down to the Internal Revenue Code, specifically a part called Section 6103. The general rule is actually very strong. The IRS is prohibited by law from sharing taxpayer information with other federal agencies, and yes, that includes immigration enforcement. But that protection isn't absolute. There are a couple of very specific, legally required exceptions, like for a federal criminal investigation that has a court order. So the privacy is strong, but it does have defined limits.
All right, so now that we've got the nuts and bolts down, let's zoom out and look at the big picture. What is the actual scale of this program? What is its economic impact?
Let's start with the people. As of 2022, there were 5.8 million active ITINs being used to file taxes in the US. So, yeah, this is not some small niche program. We are talking about millions of individuals who are actively participating in the tax system through this specific channel. And what does that translate to in actual dollars? Well, in 2019 alone, tax returns filed with an ITN kicked in a net contribution of $5.8 billion to the US economy. That's billions of dollars in revenue, all generated through this one program.
So let's just pull all the key takeaways together. First, and most important, an ITN is a tax number, period. It is not a work permit. Second, it's the official tool that brings millions of people into the tax system to comply with the law. Third, it's had this incredible side effect of opening up doors to financial services. And finally, the numbers don't lie. ITN filers are contributing billions to the US tax base.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This whole system started out as a simple administrative fix for a tax problem. Then it evolved into a key for financial services. So as the ITN gets even more baked into the system, the real question isn't just about what it is today, but what it might become tomorrow.